Most Jeep engines don't fail because they're weak. They fail because owners follow the dash instead of a system. One small habit quietly destroys bearings, and one overheat can erase years of maintenance. If you want your Jeep to outlive the payment plan, stay. This is the playbook behind 500,000-mile engines. Tip number 12. Change the oil early, not late. You can baby a Jeep and still trash the engine. The fastest way? Keep pushing that oil change one more trip, one more month. That delay alone has wrecked more Jeep engines than any crash or trail ever could. Jeep synthetic oil schedules sit around 7,500 to 10,000 miles under easy highway driving. Older conventional setups drop to 3,000 to 5,000 miles, and Jeep dealers say bring it down to 5,000 or 6,000 miles once you add off-roading, towing, heat, or city traffic. Oil breaks down with every mile, acids collect, and tiny metal shavings start grinding on bearings you need past 200,000. Think about what ignoring that costs. A full engine swap lands between $4,000 and $10,000 with labor, and some OEM replacements climb past $15,000. You saved maybe $100 skipping 3 oil changes, and now you owe more than the truck is worth. Every long-life Jeep owner shares one boring habit. They change oil before the dash nags them, run quality synthetic, use a good filter, and refuse to gamble with the timeline. Each early change dumps out metal particles, fuel contamination, moisture, and acids that slowly chew through bearings and rings from inside. Treat 10,000 miles as the ceiling for easy driving. Drop that number the second conditions get rough. And fresh oil only works if the type matches what your engine needs, which almost nobody gets right. Tip number 11. Use the exact oil weight and factory-approved spec. 2 Jeeps, same model, same year, both filled with full synthetic 5W30, and one engine ages twice as fast. A tiny line under the logo on that oil bottle tells the real story, and nobody bothers reading it. Jeep manuals call out exact viscosity and spec for every engine. Most late-model 3.6-liter Pentastar setups demand 0W20 full synthetic meeting API, ILSAC, or Mopar standards, a ceiling of 10,000 miles under normal conditions. Pour in the wrong bottle because it sat on sale, and you just changed oil pressure and flow through the entire block. Wrong viscosity raises wear both ways. Thick oil moves too slow when the engine needs it fast. Thin oil loses its protective film under heavy load. Bearings depend on a microscopic oil wedge keeping metal surfaces apart, and the second that wedge breaks, damage begins. Cheap off-brand bottles might match the number on the label while carrying weaker detergents, anti-wear agents, and oxidation resistance. More varnish builds up, sludge collects in tight passages, and breakdown speeds up every time temperatures climb. If 500,000 miles is the target, oil becomes a precision part, not something you pour and forget. Grab the manual, match weight and spec exactly. Stick with brands that meet or beat that standard. Once the oil checks out, one question separates survivors from rebuilds. Do you actually check how much is in there? If you don't want to rely on memory, I made a full Jeep longevity ebook that expands on this list and adds even more engine protection tips. Click on the link in the description below if you want it. Tip number 10. Check the oil level regularly and never let it run low. Engines do not blow up on a random morning with zero warning. Every failure started months earlier, one missing quart at a time, while the owner never pulled the dipstick. Owner guides say check at least every 3,000 miles or before long trips. Engines past 300,000 get checked way more often. 1 quart low eats into the safety margin inside the pan. Drop 2 or 3 quarts, the oil pump sucks air on hard turns or highway ramps. Once air enters, bearings starve within seconds. The ugly side shows in every engine swap story online. The line reads the same: oil level was very low, followed by a bill between $6,000 and $10,000. None of that happened overnight. It built up while the owner assumed everything was fine because no light came on. People running Jeeps to wild mileage treat the dipstick like a 2-second health scan. Every fuel stop on road trips, once a month in daily life. Park level, pull, wipe, reinsert, read. Over time, they learn a number. My Jeep burns X quart every Y miles. The moment that shifts, they know something needs attention before the bill multiplies. This habit protects every step on this list. Perfect oil weight, clean filters, tight intervals, all fall apart if the engine runs low on volume. Once your level stays good, small leaks hiding outside the block become the quiet killer. Tip number 9. Fix oil leaks before they turn into internal wear. A couple drops on the driveway every morning, who cares, right? Inside the block, though, those drops rewrite your engine's future, one night at a time, and nothing warns you until damage stacks up. Engine replacement runs from $2,000 on the low end, with salvage parts past $10,000 for new OEM assembly with labor. A scary number of blown engines trace back to slow leaks nobody tracked. Every leak pulls oil volume down, coats rubber parts, and hides problems under grime. Research on crankcase ventilation found that pressure changes inside the engine push oil out through seals. When blow-by contribution runs heavy, oil mist rides into the intake constantly. What seems like minor seepage turns out to be a pressure problem, hurting rings and gaskets from inside too. One small stain per night removes tens of liters over a full year. Bearings run closer to the danger zone. Hotspots form wherever flow drops, and damage compounds invisibly month after month. Owners reaching extreme mileage act the moment they spot oil at the bell housing, timing cover, pan, or filter housing. They swap the gasket, fix the seal, or sort the PCV issue while it costs hundreds. Waiting turns hundreds into thousands every time. Once the outside stays dry, the system to protect after that controls engine temperature. One bad overheat wipes out years of good oil habits in a single afternoon. Tip number 8. Maintain the cooling system to prevent engine damage. Jeep owners check their oil religiously and completely sleep on the temperature gauge. That gauge decides whether your cylinder head survives the year or cracks before summer, and nobody watches it until steam pours out. Some modern coolant setups claim 10 years or 150,000 miles of life, and that puts owners to sleep. Real Jeep tech advice pushes the smart change closer to 5 years or 60,000 miles, because corrosion and additive breakdowns sneak up with zero warning before the gauge climbs. Coolant carries corrosion inhibitors protecting metal surfaces and keeps temperatures in a tight, safe range. Once those additives wear out, passages scale up, the water pump pits from inside, and radiator efficiency tanks. Even one serious overheat warps aluminum heads, blows a head gasket, or mixes coolant into oil, turning it to milkshake sludge. Every overheat builds hot spots around areas already under stress. Carbon deposits hold heat in those zones and amplify temperature spikes. Stack that on thin, overworked oil, and bearings take punishment they were never built for. High-mileage cooling comes down to watching the gauge, inspecting hoses for swelling, checking for crusty buildup around fittings, flushing coolant on schedule, and fixing small leaks before they snowball. Keep temperature locked and the engine stays happy. Right after cooling, your engine faces a different threat every drive: dust and dirt from outside trying to reach your cylinders. Tip number 7. Replace the engine air filter more often in dusty or off-road conditions. Jeep life means dirt roads, sand washes, and trail dust thick enough to block the sun. Your engine treats that as sandpaper inside the cylinders, and a cheap paper filter is the only wall between clean air and destruction. Standard guidelines put air filter swaps around 12,000 to 15,000 miles for normal driving. Dusty or off-road conditions drop that to 6,000 to 10,000 miles because the filter clogs way faster. Desert trail owners swap theirs roughly every 10,000 miles or once a year. When that filter clogs, the engine still pulls the same air volume. Vacuum climbs, and if the filter carries damage or sits off the seat, fine dust sneaks past, going straight to cylinder walls and ring packs. Over hundreds of hours, that grinding widens clearances, drops compression, and turns a healthy engine into an oil burner. Even when nothing gets through, a starved engine runs richer, fouls plugs faster, and builds carbon inside the combustion chamber. That ties to the carbon problem coming later, and the whole chain started because nobody checked a $20 part on top of the motor. Long life owners pop the airbox after trail days, tap the filter, hold it to sunlight, and replace it when light barely passes through. $20 saves thousands. Once the engine breathes clean, the The weak spot shifts to cold mornings, when oil and metal sit exposed and vulnerable. Tip number 6. Let the engine warm up gently before driving it hard. Every cold start does damage you cannot hear, see, or feel. The same mistake gets repeated every morning by people who never connect it to engine problems showing up years later. Wear studies point to one scary number. Up to 75% of engine wear happens during cold starts, especially in freezing weather. One test at -5°C linked a single cold start to wear equal to roughly 99 kilometers of warm driving, about 62 miles of damage from one frosty morning. All from metal-on-metal contact while thick, cold oil has not reached every bearing and cylinder wall. Sitting idle in the driveway for 10 minutes does less than people believe. Oil needs a gentle load on top of time to reach working temperature. The smart move is a short idle of 20 to 30 seconds, then easy driving at low RPMs until coolant and oil climb into normal range. Flooring it or revving hard while everything sits, cold packs concentrated wear into the most dangerous window of the drive. Do that for hundreds of mornings, and the difference shows. Some engines feel exhausted at 120,000. Others cruise past 300,000 running smoothly. 60 seconds of patience each morning pays off in stable compression, lower noise, and timing chains that stay tight. Even with cold starts handled, oil faces a hidden attacker, short trips that never let anything reach proper operating temperature. Tip number 5. Avoid repeated short trips that build sludge and moisture. A Jeep with barely any miles on the clock can hide a sludge-packed mess inside the engine. Low mileage does not equal clean internals, and short trips are the quiet killer nobody suspects until something starts ticking. Research from major lubricant companies shows constant short-trip driving speeds up sludge, varnish, and deposit buildup because the engine never stays hot enough to cook off fuel dilution and water in the oil. Trips under 15 to 20 minutes let condensation and blow-by moisture camp in the crankcase, creating milky residue that breaks oil down faster than miles alone. That mix grows sludge, narrowing the tiny oil passages feeding lifters, cam bearings, and timing parts. As passages tighten, pressure drops where the engine needs it most. Chains stretch, lifters tick, power fades. The odometer might read 80,000 miles, but the wear tells a different story. Jeep service guides label this pattern severe duty and cut oil intervals to 6,000 miles or 6 months instead of the standard 10,000 mile schedule. That shorter window exists for a reason, and most Jeep drivers qualify without knowing. If your week means school runs, store trips, and city traffic, you adjust. Cut intervals, plan occasional longer highway drives to burn off moisture, and quit starting the engine to move it a few feet. Once oil stays clean inside, the part controlling every combustion event becomes the focus, something small most people overlook. Tip number 4. Change spark plugs on time to prevent misfires and extra engine stress. Spark plugs cost almost nothing compared to a rebuild, sitting quietly for years. When they wear out, the punishment comes from directions you would never expect from a little piece of metal under a coil pack. Jeep schedules put plug service around 30,000 miles on some setups and closer to 60,000 to 100,000 miles on long-life iridium or platinum plugs. Dealers bundle swaps with coolant flushes at 60,000 miles because worn ignition parts drag reliability down around that point. Once plugs wear, the gap widens and voltage demand climbs. Coils work overtime, misfires creep in, and unburned fuel reaches the exhaust. That fuel washes oil off cylinder walls, beats up catalytic converters, and feeds carbon deposits onto pistons and valves. The engine runs richer, loses power, and sometimes knocks because combustion turns uneven. One plug swap resets the whole chain reaction. Compression readings even out, idle smooths, and fuel trims drift back where they belong. High-mileage owners report a clear jump in throttle response and economy right after changing overdue plugs. 5 years drop off the engine from a 30-minute job. For 500,000, treat plug intervals as deadlines that never slide. Match the exact type and gap your manual calls for, torque them into clean threads. Skip this, and you feed every carbon problem on this list. Once ignition fires clean, a system most owners never consider needs attention: managing pressure inside the crankcase. Tip number 3. Keep the PCV system clean to reduce pressure and oil consumption. Most Jeep owners have never touched their PCV valve, do not know where it sits, and have no idea what it does. By the time smoke shows up, that system has been quietly wrecking things for years. Research found that blow-by oil consumption reaches serious levels when the PCV valve or passages fall behind, because oil-loaded gases flow from the crankcase back into the intake. Real-world reports add that a failed setup pushes oil use past 1 quart every 500 miles and raises pressure enough to blow seals all over the engine. When that valve sticks or passages clog, pressure climbs with nowhere to vent. That forces oil past rings and seals, pushes mist into the intake, and loads the combustion chamber with deposits, creating more problems. Trapped moisture and acids lose their exit, so sludge forms faster, eating at surfaces nobody can see. Symptoms surface as mystery oil burning with 0 visible leaks, an idle that bounces, oily film on the throttle body, and random engine codes that seem unrelated. Owners targeting $500K work PCV care into their schedule. They check hoses for collapse, swap the valve at sensible intervals, and upgrade baffles where the factory design falls short. That one fix cuts oil burning, stops outside leaks, and keeps the top end clean. Once crankcase pressure stays steady, the target shifts to carbon buildup, collecting on your valves and pistons. Tip number 2. Remove carbon buildup before it causes wear, ticking, and power loss. Engines do not go loud and rough all at once. Carbon piles up so slowly you never catch it, layer by layer, until the whole thing runs weaker than the odometer says. Carbon collects on valves, pistons, and chamber walls whenever the engine runs rich, short trips dominate, or oil burns during combustion. That carbon traps heat, creating local hotspots inside the chamber. Knock risk goes up, efficiency drops, and the computer pulls timing. You lose power, smooth running, and economy in one shot. Warning signs show as the engine knocks under load, an idle that wanders, hesitation on the gas, and economy sliding even though other items check out. Direct injection engines take a bigger hit because fuel no longer washes intake valves, letting deposits stack. Those cases need the manifold pulled and valves blasted with walnut shell media. Smart owners handle carbon before that stage. They run quality fuel, limit idling and short trip patterns, fix PCV and misfire issues fast, and periodically use approved intake cleaners or combustion treatments. Early signals include light knock on acceleration or a slow slide in economy over several fill-ups. Clean chambers protect ringlands, keep compression even, and stop the hotspot reaction that cracks parts. With combustion locked in, the last piece deciding whether your Jeep makes 500,000 comes down to picking the right maintenance schedule for how this truck actually gets driven. Tip number 1. Follow the severe duty maintenance schedule, not the basic one. Almost every Jeep owner lives in severe duty conditions and has no clue. The schedule on paper does not match what the engine goes through daily, and that gap is where engines quietly die. Service guides define severe duty with a list that sounds like normal Jeep life. Frequent short trips, off-road use, dusty roads, stop-and-go traffic, extreme heat or cold, heavy loads, extended idling. Sound familiar? Under those conditions, Jeep maintenance calls for oil changes around 6,000 miles or 6 months, not 10,000 or 12 months. Other items include spark plugs between 30,000 and 60,000 miles, air filters around 20,000 to 30,000, and coolant between 100,000 and 150,000 on official Wrangler schedules. Owners pretending severe duty driving is normal and following the relaxed schedule stretch every fluid, filter, and ignition part past what engineers planned. It coasts fine, then hits all at once. Worn timing parts, dirty injectors, sludged passages, or a repair estimate that drops your jaw. Engines surviving past 300,000 miles did not get there on luck. Their owners cut intervals when conditions turned harsh, stuck with OEM or better fluids, and checked often enough to catch small stuff before bills exploded. Put that schedule on top of the 11 other habits, and your engine quits acting like a countdown clock. It runs like a machine built to cross 500,000 miles on the original block, doing what it was built to do. If this changed how you look at your own Jeep, tell me in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, Hit the subscribe button and next video and keep going with me. See you in the next one.